The morning air outside your window is carrying something invisible. You might hear the faint, muffled hum of distant traffic or the click of a kitchen faucet. But beneath that urban static, a high-frequency world is operating at a blistering speed. A tiny Carolina wren lands on a rusted garden stake, its throat vibrating at a rate so fast it blurs to the naked eye. Most people walk past this moment every single day, assuming it's just background noise. But what if that flash of feathers and that sudden, piercing trill was actually triggering a profound, microscopic shift inside your brain? What if the key to sharpening a changing mind wasn't found in a puzzle book, but sitting right outside your glass? Most people assume that as we cross the threshold of 55, the brain's capacity to build new pathways simply slows down, settling into a permanent fixed plateau. We accept occasional memory slips or slower reaction times as the inevitable cost of aging. But neurology tells a startlingly different story. Here's what modern science is only beginning to unpack. Your brain is actively starving for a very specific type of environmental data. It doesn't crave passive entertainment or predictable visual loops. It craves unpredictable, dynamic tracking. When a bird darts across your field of vision, accelerating from 0 to 40 miles per hour in a fraction of a second, your visual cortex is forced to calculate trajectory, velocity, and distance instantly. Most people do not realize that this split-second tracking acts like a high-intensity workout for neural circuitry that otherwise lies dormant in modern life. The forest canopy isn't just a pretty backdrop. It's a complex, high-speed simulator designed by millions of years of evolution to keep neural pathways elastic, razor-sharp, and fiercely alive. When you begin to notice these rapid movements, a quiet transformation starts to happen beneath the surface of daily routines. You begin to reclaim a sense of sharp, unshakable mental clarity that you might fear is slipping away. This isn't about memorizing field guides or collecting species names on a checklist. This is about building an impenetrable cognitive shield against the fog of routine. By engaging with the lightning-fast world of avian behavior, you're actively preserving your mind's agility, ensuring that your focus, if you have ever stared out your window and wondered what secrets are hiding just beyond the glass, consider hitting that subscribe button. Together, we're going to explore the hidden mechanics of the natural world and discover how a few minutes outside can completely rewire your daily experience. Imagine standing at your kitchen sink, watching the yard through a pane of glass. To your conscious mind, you're just waiting for the kettle to boil. But inside your skull, a magnificent biological apparatus is running on idle. For decades, your visual cortex has adapted to the predictable geometries of modern civilization: straight walls, flat computer screens, and slow-moving traffic. These environments require very little heavy lifting from your optical processing units. When you shift your gaze to the chaotic, untamed motion of a backyard bird feeder, everything changes. Consider a flock of goldfinches landing on a swaying thistle stalk. They don't arrive in an orderly line. They flutter, drop, pivot, and contest space in a blur of yellow and black. To track just one of those birds, your eyes have to perform rapid saccadic movements, lightning-fast jumps from one focal point to another, while your brain instantly calculates spatial coordinates in 3 dimensions. This is the hidden gem for your visual cortex. In the wild expanse of nature, human eyes evolved to track sudden threats and food sources moving at erratic velocities. When you engage in birdwatching, you reactivate this primordial visual processing software. The micro-adjustments your eyes make to follow a nuthatch spiraling headfirst down an oak tree force your optic nerve and brain to fire in unison, clearing out the cobwebs of screen fatigue and waking up dormant neural pathways that city living lulls to sleep. Sound travels differently through a morning canopy than it does down an asphalt street. When you step outside at dawn, your ears are greeted by a complex wall of frequency and modulation. Most mature adults experience a natural decline in hearing high-frequency ranges, often assuming that the subtle nuances of birdsong are permanently lost to them. But the human ear is remarkably adaptable, and the brain possesses an extraordinary decoding engine known as auditory scene analysis. Listen closely to a mockingbird perched on a television antenna. It doesn't just sing. It weaves a complex tapestry of mimicry, trills, and staccato bursts that span multiple octaves. When you actively tune in to isolate that single voice from the background drone of lawnmowers and distant highways, your auditory cortex goes to work like a master sound engineer. This process forces your brain to practice selective attention at an elite level. As we age, the brain's ability to suppress background noise, the classic cocktail party problem, naturally declines. By sitting quietly and parsing the overlapping calls of cardinals, titmice, and jays, you're putting your auditory processing system through a rigorous boot camp. You're training your neural networks to filter out irrelevant acoustic clutter and zero in on specific high-value frequencies, directly preserving your verbal processing and listening comprehension in complex social environments. For generations, biological dogma dictated that the adult brain was a static organ, incapable of growing new neurons once past a certain age. Modern neuroscience has completely shattered that myth, proving that neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections, remains active throughout life, provided it's given the right kind of fuel. That fuel is novelty paired with deep attention. When you look at a familiar backyard tree, your brain usually applies a mental shortcut, just a maple tree. But when a brown creeper lands on that exact same trunk, perfectly camouflaged against the bark, your brain is forced to break its lazy habituation. You have to look harder, scan textures, and analyze subtle shifts in shadow and form. This moment of active discovery triggers the release of acetylcholine and dopamine, the twin neurochemicals that open the brain's plasticity gates. At 55 and beyond, this chemical cascade is vital. It tells your neural architecture that something important is happening, signaling the brain to strengthen existing synapses and forge brand new pathways. You're literally rewiring your capacity for sustained concentration. Eyes. Every time you spot an unfamiliar silhouette or track an unexpected behavior, you're building cognitive reserve, creating robust alternative routes in your neural network that protect against mental decline. There's a profound difference between looking at the world and truly observing it. Passive gazing, scrolling through a feed, or staring blankly out a window allows the brain to slip into a low-energy default mode network, where rumination and mental fatigue take over. Active observation, on the other hand, requires a dance of executive functions: working memory, inhibition control, and cognitive flexibility. Consider the mental steps required when a silhouette flashes past your field of view. You have to hold its size, color pattern, and flight trajectory in your working memory while instantly cross-referencing that data with everything you know. Did it undulate like a woodpecker, or did it bound like a finch? Is its bill curved or straight? This rapid-fire interrogation of visual evidence is a potent form of mental exercise. Neurological studies increasingly show that engaging in complex, intellectually stimulating hobbies that require real-world pattern recognition significantly lowers the risk of cognitive impairment later in life. Birdwatching is essentially a dynamic puzzle that changes every single second. There is no static answer key, no predictable board game layout. It's an infinitely variable landscape that demands your full, undivided mental presence, keeping your cognitive gears well-oiled and turning smoothly. Many people believe that spending time in nature simply means taking a quiet stroll through the park, letting the environment wash over them while their minds wander elsewhere. While relaxation has its merits, passive immersion doesn't trigger the deep neurological adaptations we're talking about here. Strolling on autopilot while thinking about your to-do list leaves your brain in neutral. Dynamic tracking is entirely different. It requires intention, posture, and visual engagement. When you lift binoculars to your eyes, you narrow your universe down to a single circular frame of magnified reality. Your hands have to coordinate with your eyes to stabilize the lens against microtremors. Your fingers make tiny, precise adjustments to the focus wheel, while your target bobs and weaves behind a screen of restless leaves. This closed-loop feedback system adjust, track, analyze demands total integration of your motor skills and sensory processing. It turns your visual system into an active predator of details. You're no longer just a passive spectator in your own life. You're an active investigator decoding a complex, living puzzle. That shift from passive consumer of scenery to active tracker of biological data is precisely what unlocks the brain's deepest regenerative capacities. And yet, as you stand there practicing this daily art of dynamic tracking and acoustic decoding, something subtle shifts in the rhythm of your days. The morning hours stop feeling like a countdown to obligations and start feeling like the opening curtain of a private theater. you begin to notice that your attention span, which may have felt frayed by decades of digital bombardment and rapid-fire media, is beginning to lengthen and deepen. You can sit still for 20, 30, 40 minutes without the phantom itch to check a screen. Your eyes feel clearer, your ears more attuned to the symphony of the neighborhood. The background noise of modern life starts to recede, replaced by a razor-sharp awareness of the living world vibrating just inches from your window pane. You realize that your mind was never fading. It was simply, and then the moment arrives. You're standing by the window on an ordinary Tuesday, completely quiet, holding your breath. Without warning, a Cooper's hawk drops from the upper branches of the oak tree like a feathered thunderbolt, missing a fleeing dove by a fraction of an inch and exploding through the brush in a masterclass of high-speed aerial navigation. In one split second, your visual cortex fires at maximum capacity, tracking every vector of motion, every frantic adjustment of wing and tail feathers, while your auditory system registers the sudden, sharp silence that falls over the entire yard. Your heart races, not from fear, but from pure, unadulterated awe. In that single flash of biological perfection, your entire nervous system is jolted awake, proving with absolute finality that your brain is fully equipped to experience wonder, speed, and breathtaking intensity right here, right now. We started our morning looking out the very same window at the muffled, static hum of a sleeping world. We thought the silence outside was just emptiness, and we feared the quiet slowing of our own minds was an irreversible law of time. But as the hawk vanishes into the tree line and the neighborhood slowly returns to its song, you realize the truth. The world was never empty, and your mind never finished growing. It was simply waiting for you to open the glass, tune your senses, and start watching the show. What is the most surprising bird or wildlife encounter you have ever witnessed right outside your own window? Drop your story in the comments below, and let's talk about what your yard is really hiding.